Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are getting into a super fascinating cultural shift happening right now on Chinese social media. If you've ever found yourself wondering how our modern digital platforms, influencer culture, and deep-rooted traditions all kind of crash into each other, well, you're in the right place. We're going to explore how a very specific group of young, highly independent female vloggers are using something as simple as the act of living alone to completely redefine their place in society. And to help us make sense of it all, we've distilled some incredible insights from a 2025 academic study published in the journal Global Media in China. Okay, let's dive into this. Because honestly, to really understand this digital rebellion, we first have to understand the intense, real-world societal pressures that young Chinese women are facing when it comes to marriage and family. For decades, the path to success for women in China was heavily culturally defined by marriage and motherhood. But as urban China has evolved, and as more and more women have pursued higher education and really demanding professional careers, this profound tension has bubbled up between traditional expectations and a modern independent lifestyle. So, what does it actually mean to be single and successful in China today? Well, as we're about to see, it depends entirely on who you ask. You see, for a long time, the mainstream answer to that question was wrapped up in this pretty harsh label, shenyu, or leftover women. This is a derogatory term historically used to stigmatize unmarried professional women, usually once they hit their late 20s and beyond. And the roots of this, they trace all the way back to traditional Confucian ideals that frame a woman's primary moral duty as being a good wife and mother. Within that traditional framework, women who stay single are often unfairly painted by popular media as being, overly picky, selfish, or just self-pitying. It's essentially a label used to discipline women who just don't fit neatly into the traditional heterosexual marriage structure. To give you an idea of how deeply ingrained the stigma became, just take a look at this timeline. The term shengnu was actually formalized by the Chinese Ministry of Education back in 2007. I mean, wow, right? But notice the push and pull of the societal changes that followed. Ironically, in 2011, a new marriage law shifted property rights to protect pre-marriage assets. And what that did was actually leave a lot of married women in a really underprivileged position when it came to real estate. So it unintentionally pushed single women to seek their own financial security before ever tying the knot. Then, in 2016, the single-child policy was abolished. Researchers point out this actually led to a backlash of gender inequality in the workplace, simply because employers suddenly anticipated women taking more maternity leave. Finally, in 2017, the All China Women's Federation officially banned the use of the term shengnu. So you have this institutionalized stigma on one side, but the structural realities of modern China simultaneously pushing women towards self-reliance on the other. And this brilliantly illustrates where that push for self-reliance actually found a home. Xiaohongshu, also known as Little Red Book, this is a massively popular social media and e-commerce platform over in China. Just look at this demographic breakdown from 2022. A whopping 70% of the active users are female, and half of the entire platform's active users are living in top-tier Chinese cities. It is a highly urban, female-dominated digital space. And it's exactly here that young professional women began pushing back against that shengnu stigma, basically creating a completely new narrative around what it means to be single. Which brings us to the modern digital rebellion. Enter the living alone wanghong, or internet influencers. That 2025 study I mentioned, the researchers actually analyzed 50 viral vlogs from female creators on Xiaohongshu to understand exactly how they are redefining singleness on screen. So, the researchers dug into these 50 vlogs and found that they all follow a very specific, almost standardized blueprint. To prove their happiness and fight back against that leftover women narrative, these influencers meticulously build their content around 3 recurring pillars. Step 1, economic independence. Step 2, self-care and discipline. And Step 3, enjoyable loneliness. Let's walk through exactly how they use these 3 pillars to construct their incredibly popular on-screen lives. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how this first pillar, economic independence, is grounded in real, tangible stakes. Take this quote from a vlogger named Sifu Shizushimo. She shares openly with her audience that she earns 30,000 RMB a month working in Beijing. She says, "I don't have much in savings, but single life is very comfortable. I have my own small home in Beijing. It gives me a strong sense of security." In the world of these vlogs, having a high-paying job isn't framed as a barrier to a good life. It is literally the absolute foundation of it. And notice how she specifically highlighted owning her own home. In traditional Chinese marriage customs, the man and his family are generally the ones expected to purchase the real estate. But by buying their own apartments, these vloggers are showcasing a really powerful equation. Homeownership equals freedom.
It allows them to completely bypass that traditional requirement of relying on a husband for property and stability. The domestic space is no longer a place where a woman just provides unpaid labor for a family. It becomes a personal sanctuary. It's a literal exhibition of her own financial capability.
So once that home is secured, we move to the second pillar, self-care and discipline. The statistics from the sampled vlogs here are pretty striking. Out of 50 videos, 45 feature the vlogger cooking healthy food and 42 feature at-home workouts or yoga. We also see these extensive, highly disciplined skincare routines. Now, why does this matter so much? Because remember that derogatory Shengnu stereotype? It often portrays single women as self-pitying or letting themselves go. By broadcasting these highly disciplined routines, the vloggers are actively, visibly rebelling against that exact trope. They are proving that they are healthy, vibrant, and taking immaculate care of themselves. And that brings us to the third pillar, enjoyable loneliness. A huge part of this involves totally redefining companionship. Pet ownership is incredibly prominent in these videos. Look at this quote from a vlogger named Mahuajiang. "I have 3 cats and a dog. Why do I bother to get married? Why do I even need a man?" For these women, animals are providing that emotional support and joy, effectively replacing the traditional roles of a husband or children. It's a bold, direct statement that their emotional needs are fully met without having to conform to what society expects of them.
So, the crucial point is that they don't deny that living alone means spending a lot of time by yourself, but they boldly reframe that solitude. Listen to this quote from vlogger Yijihu Huahuaya. "People say living by yourself is lonely, but compared with messy married life, I enjoy the freedom." They're taking the entire concept of loneliness and just flipping it completely on its head, presenting it as the ultimate form of freedom and autonomy. No compromises, no messy arguments, just clean, peaceful independence. Okay, up to this point, we've seen a pretty inspiring story of feminist rebellion, right? But here is the twist. Because there is a highly commercialized reality hiding right in the background of these picture-perfect vlogs. And it revolves entirely around consumerism. Let's look at this comparison impartially for a second. On one side, we have this empowering feminist message, freedom, self-reliance, and defying the Shengnu stigma. But on the other side, we have the commercial reality actually being shown on screen. Those workouts, they feature high-end designer activewear. The pets, they aren't rescues. They are expensive, purebred cats and dogs. The self-care heavily relies on luxury, premium skincare products. The empowering message of living alone is definitely undeniable, but the reality presented on these platforms requires a whole lot of wealth and class privilege to actually pull off. In fact, these highly authentic vlogs are deeply, deeply intertwined with platform advertising. That theme of economic independence perfectly sets the stage for product placements. Throughout the 50 vlogs, researchers noted a steady stream of sponsored products. Smart home projectors for cozy movie nights, fancy air purifiers and air fryers for that healthy cooking aesthetic, imported pet food, and luxury beauty products. The vlogs are quietly selling these items as the tools you absolutely need to achieve this independent lifestyle. Now, in academic terms, the study published in Global Media in China refers to this phenomenon as turning women's singleness into a post-feminist neoliberal object. To translate that jargon for us, it basically means taking the structural, very real struggles that single women face, like workplace discrimination or intense familial pressure, and turning singleness into a brand. It suggests that empowerment isn't necessarily about changing the system, it just means buying the right lifestyle. It sends the message that if you work hard enough and buy the right air fryer, the right projector, and the right skincare routine, you too can essentially buy your way out of the stigma. Let's move to and see how this builds. Because looking at the big picture, we are left with this fascinating friction between systemic inequality and individual consumerism. On the one hand, these vloggers really are providing a powerful, highly visible pushback against traditional patriarchal stigmas. They're normalizing female independence for millions of viewers. But on the other hand, they promote this meritocratic illusion. They suggest a sort of gender-blind ideology where massive systemic problems are totally individualized. The implicit message ends up being that if you are wealthy enough, you can escape patriarchy simply through consumption. Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative thought. As we watch these beautifully curated, deeply relaxing vlogs of independent women thriving in their own spaces, we have to ask ourselves, is true empowerment found in the act of living alone and defying tradition? Or is this specific digital version of it just found in what we can afford to buy? It is a super complex intersection of modern independence, influencer culture, and commerce.
Thank you so much for joining me to explore this topic today. I really hope this explainer gave you a new lens through which to view the media we consume every single day. Stay curious and keep learning.